Is Matt Zarb-Cousin, former spokesperson for Jeremy Corbyn, and here in the studio with me, Martin Daubney, the columnist for Telegraph Men. Good morning to you both. Matt, I do have to come to you first because you are being credited with putting this term gammon in the mainstream. Explain to us what the term gammon means to you.
Well, I didn't invent calling people gammon. I just explained in an article for Huck magazine why it's not racist.
Charles Dickens takes that honour, I understand, and Nicholas Nickleby.
Yeah, absolutely right. But I explained why it wasn't racist, because no one's born a gammon. It results from a series of choices, lifestyle choices, choices about politics, and not every red-faced, middle-aged man is a gammon. Ken Clarke, for example, not a gammon, because doesn't have reactionary politics. So it does really kind of it's a stereotype.
Why is gammon? Because if we look at a joint of ham, a gammon joint, people are immediately drawing parallels to how these middle-aged white men look.
Yeah, because they're very. I mean, you see them in the question time audience. They're very angry, pointing, jabbing their finger at the panel. It's a consequence of their state of mind. The red in the face, the red face. It's not racist. It's a ridiculous kind of supposition that could be racist.
OK, it's interesting, isn't it, Martin? Because a lot of people are saying, well, hang on a second. If you equated a piece of food with a Muslim man or a black man, we wouldn't quite be seeing it in the same jolly light.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a racist term. Let's just say that. I think actually it's the first funny thing that the liberal left have done. You know, they are defined by their kind of turgid humourlessness. I think gammon's actually quite funny, and I love gammon. And I guess I am gammon. I'm middle-aged, I'm white, I get angry about Brexit, I get angry about immigration, as many people do, the majority, actually. What I think is interesting here is how a lot of people are taking it as a racial slur. Now, that's their consequence. Like, we say gammon isn't a race, true, but neither is a coconut. But when Savio Javi was called a coconut, that was interpreted as racism, but a coconut isn't a race. So what is racist? I guess it's not the people's job who say the offence to deem that. It's those who are on the receiving end of it. And, of course, we can argue that whites aren't oppressed. Systematically, we hold privilege, we hold power. Yeah, of course. But why? I think what's happening here is it's not so much the message, it's the messengers. If you play the identity politics game, particularly when Owen Jones picked up and ran with this. He's a guy who takes that sort of holier-than-thou perch in every single one of these debates. And you could say, yeah, sticks and stones, let's fight back. So we've got, like, libtard, we've got all these kind of offensive terms against the left. And so now it's the left playing the right's game. Does that make them clever, or does it make them equally as childish?
So, Matt, the left are fighting back with gammon, and while it might not be racist, it's certainly derogatory.
Yeah, and the left actually have experienced a huge amount of name-calling, trots. I've been called a Stalinist. Yep. I've been, hard left even is a pejorative term, when really all we're doing is supporting a Labour leadership that has propagated very mild socially democratic policies. So, I mean, all of these pejorative terms have been carried by the mainstream press in the last 3 years. And I was in a debate yesterday with a Times political correspondent who had written an article about this. And she said, why can't we just leave the name calling and just talk about policies and talk about how to improve the country? And I said, amen, thank you. Because really what all the right have been doing for the last 3 years is trying to delegitimise the left through name calling. And when we come up with some funny names to kind of fight back or, give a bit back, it then becomes a kind of, it's on the news agenda.
OK, well, if gammon's funny, why isn't coconut funny?
Well, if you talk about Sajid Javid there, he was born that way. You can't be racist that's racist, clearly, because someone is born that way. A gammon is not born that way. And I would just like to ask whether you think that a middle-aged white man experiences racism. Are they abused in the street?
But people
are they? When was the last time? Are they withheld services?
I think I just said I don't think it's a racist term, but I do think it's childish and bigoted. I think that's the point. It's like if the left are playing the identity politics game and then they revert to doing what they criticise the right for doing, then they're just part of the problem. They're equally as kind of childish as you like. Although I do think gammon is funny. I do think it's a very descriptive and evocative term, and I guess I am gammon. I don't don't care. I'm not offended. You know, I've got bigger things to worry about than name calling, and I agree with Matt. You know, if we could talk about policies, but when we get down to, you know, to name calling, what about anti-Semitism in the Labour Party? You know, we don't have a clean bill of health, and so it's not appropriate, I don't think, for the left to say all the right do is insult the left. Well, what about insulting Jewish people, insulting Savi Javi? You know, if we want to get our shop in order, all of us, then that's a collective responsibility. But it's not fair or factually correct to say this is only the right that are doing this. It's not. It's ambivalent.
And Matt, I'll let you come back on that point.
Yeah, I just think there's a real double standard going on, because the Times were really upset about the use of the word gammon, which, to be honest, I think is quite funny. But last week in the Times, Melanie Phillips wrote an article saying that Islamophobia doesn't exist. Yeah. And no one's really outraged about that. I mean, we're talking about white middle-aged people, you know, looking a bit like a piece of gammon. I mean, it's not racist, come on.
I think it's
ridiculous.
Funny. I do think it's funny, but a lot of people don't. And it's interesting, I did a hugely unscientific Twitter poll yesterday. 2/3 said they thought it was offensive. And, you know, well done. You are creating a great news agenda around offensive words, and I think it's a fun talking point, but it has a serious side. And the left can't say this is only the right if they're joining in with the playground insults.
OK, Matt, Martin, thank you very much. It's a word that a lot of our viewers are saying they'd never heard of in this context before. Most of them thought it was what they were having for dinner tonight. Thank you both very much indeed.